In the gospel today, we hear Jesus talking to the Pharisees, and just in the section immediately preceding what we heard in the gospel, talks about how the Pharisees who loved money. And we see that, as St. Paul says to Timothy, he says, the love of money is the root of all evil. No, it's not money is the root of all evil, but the love of money is the root of all evil. We see that this rich man, he loved his money so much, he didn't even help the man at his door. It's not like he was condemned for someone across the world that he didn't help, but rather Lazarus was at his door, who would have been happy even just with the scraps from his table. And he got nothing. He got nothing. And it's not like the rich man didn't know who he was. In fact, in the netherworld, he cries out to Father Abraham, "Send Lazarus." He knew the man's name. He knew the man's name. He saw him, he knew him, he recognized him, he even knew his name, but he did not help him. At least since that's the only I can't think of the word I'm looking for. The only thing that we can see from the story that's showing us what's happening is that must be the reason Jesus is saying that he was put into torment. Cardinal George, who was the Cardinal Archbishop of Chicago when I was in seminary out in Chicago, at a gathering of donors for some sort of event, said to them, "The poor need you to pull them out of poverty, and you need the poor to keep you out of hell." That there's something in us that's called to be generous. We need to become like God, as it were. When we get to heaven, what's heaven called but the kingdom of love? It's where we love selflessly. We give of ourselves perfectly. And we practice that here and now because God is love. And so the more we learn to love, the more we learn to be generous, the more we learn to reach out to others, that's where we become more like God. And while it may mean specifically helping those who are poor, may not necessarily mean that we give money to the panhandler on the street, but at least recognizing their sacred dignity. You see, because each person is made in the image and likeness of Almighty God. And we're called to reverence that sacred dignity. And while it may be the poor in our community that we're called to reach out to, and we have plenty of opportunities and ways that we can do that, whether the community caregivers or the food pantries or whatever else, those are wonderful and beautiful ways. We also have to recognize it's not just about giving monetarily, but recognizing the sacred dignity of the person. And it may mean, for instance, that person at work that annoys the heck out of us. We continue to reverence their sacred dignity and not talk about them around the water cooler. It may mean the people that most get under our skin in our own family. That we love them with a patient mercy. You know, there are so many violations of that sacred dignity of the human person, whether it's the shootings that have happened or the scourge of abortion or so many of the other things that happen in our land. We're called to build up a reverence for that sacred dignity by first looking at, am I able to love the people in my circle that I have contact with? Am I able to listen to the person even when they are annoying me and showing them the love and reverence that is called and due to them? I'm just, as I'm preparing for my trip to Poland tomorrow, I've been, going again into the lives of St. Maximilian Kolbe and St. Faustina and St. John Paul II, and I'm listening again to the Pope and the CEO, which is by one of the men who used to be a papal guard under John Paul II and then became a CEO, and how he used the things that he learned from John Paul in his business life. And one of the things he said about being in the presence of St. John Paul II, many people had this experience that when he was talking to them, it seemed like they were the only person there. That he wasn't distracted. He wasn't looking around and saying, okay, I'm at this party, and say, okay, yeah, I'm listening to you, but I'm looking for someone else who might be more important right now to talk to. He was focused in on that person right in front of him, recognizing the sacred dignity that was there. In fact, he recognized God's presence in each person so much in each encounter that there was a bishop that when he went for his ad limina visit, which is every 5 years they have to go and visit with the Pope and have this conversation with him and find so the Pope can have figure out what's going on in his diocese and throughout the world. This bishop went to visit with John Paul II and said, we've met before. And the bishop was like, no, I would have remembered if we met before. No, we've met before. I know, I remember. And he said, no, we've never met before, Pope. And afterwards, the Pope's secretary went up to the guy, you did meet him before. You remember at such and such a time, I think it was 1962 or something like that, you were in Rome at this particular place? Yeah, I was studying in Rome at that time. That's right, yes. And you had this conversation with this Polish bishop who came out. That's right. That was John Paul. How in the world did he remember me, says the bishop. He says, well, the Pope sees every encounter with a human person as an encounter with Almighty God. Do we recognize the sacred dignity in each person? And do we reverence that? And the Lord is inviting us today to recognize His presence in each person. And sometimes we're waiting for some sort of sign, like in the end of the gospel, the rich man says, please send Lazarus to go and warn my brothers. Oh no, that won't help. They have Moses and the prophets. No, if someone rises from the dead, then they will listen. And he says, no, even if someone if they don't listen to Moses and the prophets, they're not going to listen to someone who rises from the dead. Guess what? Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And you know what the Jewish authorities wanted to do with him? They wanted to kill him again. They wanted to kill him again, even though it was someone risen from the dead. And guess what? Someone else rose from the dead. Almighty God. Jesus took on our humanity. He walked our walk. He talked our talk. He lived our life. He died our death. And then He rose again, destroying the power of sin and death. He says, do you not know? Do you not believe what I tell you? You don't need signs and wonders. And we have these signs and wonders, and people still don't believe, even in our own time, right? We had, just over 100 years ago, there was the miracle of the sun at Fatima that danced in the sky, witnessed by something like 80,000 people. People who were atheists and people who were believers. And it was reported in the secular media. And still people didn't believe. We have the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which NASA scientists have looked at and says there's no way that we know of that this material could still be in existence, that the colors are hovering over the material, not even touching the material. They're hovering over them, I don't know how many microbes above or whatever it is. But that they say we have no idea how this can be. And yet it is. We have these miraculous things in our midst. We have the incredible gifts of the Eucharistic miracles, where the Eucharist has become not just the flesh of Jesus, but also then visible and tangible flesh, as we understand, not just under sacrament and sign. And been tested to see that it's heart tissue, and not just any heart tissue, it's living heart tissue. And yet, we have all these things in our world, and people still don't believe. Are we waiting for signs and wonders to say, well, okay, I need to follow what Jesus is telling me to do, to be able to respect the sacred dignity of the other person. You know, the incredible gift about the Eucharist is this is Almighty God who comes to us on this altar. And he comes under the form of bread and wine. And as we spend time gazing upon him, we train our eyes to see Christ's presence under the form of bread, under the form of wine, so that we can then train our eyes to see Christ's presence hidden in the people around us. That can be so hard with the people that annoy us. It can be so hard with the people that we struggle with. It can be so hard with the people even who are our enemies. And Jesus invites us. He invites us to recognize his presence. You did it to me. When we do it to the least of his children, to recognize his sacred dignity in each person, even the people, can you believe it, even the politicians, the people that we may not agree with or like. Because you see, our enemies, the real enemy, is not someone on this earth, but it's spiritual, the evil one. Every person in this world is made in God's image and likeness. And we're called to love. Even if we don't agree with everything that person says or does, we're still called to love each person. Will we be able to grow in our recognition and reverence for the sacred dignity of each person? It can be so hard because it means we have to die to ourselves in so many ways. And yet, this is what it's all about. When we get to heaven, we're called to love every single person there, even the people we didn't like here on this earth. So we need to start practicing now, reaching out in generosity, in love, in patience, in mercy. Let's ask Almighty God for that grace to be able to reach out and to reverence the sacred dignity of every single person we meet.